Hey everyone, John here. I'm a staff software engineer in applied generative AI. I have over a decade of experience in software engineering and also an economics PhD, which gives me an interesting angle on teaching people to code because I teach people to code in a way that's optimized for career acceleration as opposed to skill without a systematic higher order plan. So I am also the lead maintainer of the open source latterly.io, where you can learn more about how to learn to code and land your first or next programming role. In today's video, we're going to cover a simple multi-agent system using the Google-ADK. I prefer the Gemini free tier because it has a generous free tier. There's interesting things about Gemini foundation models for generative AI, including a large context window. But the real reason that I like it is because it's so accessible to relatively junior engineers, including the generous free tier. So this is an open source Quickstart, and this system works. And it is currently stable, and we're going to destabilize. Built-in tools and custom tools. So one of the cool things about agents is tool usage. And the ADK makes this pretty seamless, but there's a wrinkle. If you use a built-in tool like the Google search tool, you cannot register this alongside custom tools in a single agent. You need to use an orchestrator agent with tool delegation. So that's what we'll be implementing in the first part of this video. And then in the second part of the video, I will cover how to run the application using a Docker file, as opposed to in the first part of the video, we'll be doing more of a developer server sort of thing. Okay, so that gives you the background. We'll open up Cursor now. Hopefully I can bring this on the screen. Oh, there's some trouble bringing it on the screen. That's strange. Maybe I need to change which screen that I'm sharing. Okay, fun. Let me see if I can change the screen that I'm sharing. Or if I can stop sharing the screen momentarily and bring it over. That's also not working for some reason. Okay. So now you should be able to see Cursor. Can you also see? Oh, okay, I see what's going on. Now you can also see both. Okay, great. So we'll focus on Cursor. This is the current state of the tool. I think in the main branch, this tools file is called utools. I renamed it to tools. Otherwise, I haven't changed much. The agent itself, we can see the diff. I changed the instructions. Instead of you're a research agent with Google Search, now you are a search assistant and die roller. And I tried to register two tools, and I ran into the issue that we'll now be solving. And so to solve this issue, I have this prompt here. One of the things that's interesting about the prompt is that I have these co-pilot instructions. So this is some useful context about the application, including the folder structure and a copy of the PyProject.toml, which is notable because some of these changes are related to recent breaking changes in the Google-ADK. And this thing is currently being updated about like once a month. So if you view this more than a month in the future, you might want to refresh these instructions because we need to tell Cursor to check the web to use the latest syntax, because these syntaxes are, Google is rolling out breaking changes at a relatively regular cadence. And to refresh the instructions, I have this create copilot instructions script. It'll read the current state of the repository and so on. From the main folder, you can just make instructions, and it will regenerate the instructions as it did here. So now you see it updated to realize the file is called tools. I'll stage that as well. Okay, and then the other interesting thing about the prompt is that I used @web. So I'm telling Cursor that it needs to conduct a web search. So I say in the latest Google ADK guidance, there have been some changes. We now prefer the more explicit LLM agent over the agent class where applicable, and it's going to be applicable for our use case. And secondly, arguably more importantly, built-in tools like Google Search cannot be combined with custom tools like rolled dice. So please refactor the existing single agent to a multi-agent system with a top-level root agent that delegates to agent built-in tools and agent custom tools appropriately. And then I link this document. And I just found this by Google-ADK. I visit here, I click the agents tool or the agents tab. And now we're getting the up-to-date documentation. The documentation is pretty good. I've read through it. So hopefully this is going to be satisfactory for Cursor. We may need to go back and forth and talk specifically about the multi-agent page, but maybe it will be able to navigate on its own. So let's submit this and see. While that runs, feel free to drop questions and comments in the chat. Welcome in. I'm also pinning the Gemini 2.5 Pro reasoning model as opposed to using auto mode or something like that. I like to work with pinned models because they have their pros and cons. So at least I know some of the weak points and some of the strong points. Some of the pain points that I've run into recently, ChatGPT 4.1 likes to make rapid searches and provide feedback, but it stops short of updating the code. The Pro model I've seen goes ahead and updates the code, which is what I prefer. I suspect the Gemini 2.5 Pro foundation model has a little bit more insight into the Google ecosystem, but that could be totally wrong. Okay, so here it's made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 agents, which I don't expect. I expect 3. I'll go ahead and run this, but I may provide feedback. And it's saying tab to utils.py, but the tab key does nothing. Yeah, my keyboard's working, but the tab key goes nowhere. So I don't know what that's about. So let's just see if this works, although I think we're going to want to iterate. Okay, so to bring up the agent playground, this is basically a developer tool. I'll cd into the backend folder and I'll type ADK web. Notice that I already have backend in parentheses here. That means that I already sourced my virtual environment, and the README file will walk you through how to use UV as the package manager and create a virtual environment. Once it's been activated and the dependencies have been installed, then we should be able to run ADK web. And here I've mistyped it, ADK web. Okay, so we can go over to localhost 8000. This is different than the Docker flow, but this is what we want to do for now. And I will select source. So source is choosing the agent defined under source. So I pick the source folder and I will say, what is today's date? Okay, so we run into an error. Yeah, and so this tools thing, I could send this to Gemini, but instead I'll look at the diff because this was working properly before. Google-ADK agents tools. Yeah. So this appears to not be a thing. This may be hallucinated. I could give it more information about the multi-agent setup. I think that's where it's being confused. Yeah, agent custom tools here. This seems like not necessary, these two intermediary agents. I'll go ahead and do that. So multi-agent systems, I'll consider the document on multi-agent systems. Since I paste a hyperlink literal, and it may be hard to see on this, no, I think you can see it. It's a shade of blue, which means that Cursor will know to execute a web search on this URL literal without me using the web tool explicitly. Investigating transfer delegation. I've now focused on understanding the transfer to agent mechanism. So this is the correct thing to do. So hopefully it gets the refactor syntax correct. I'll go ahead and stop my agent server and accept these changes. 1, 2, 3. Now I see the 3 that I expect. I'm going to close all these just because the tab to utils is kind of freaking me out. And let's run ADK. It came back. What a bummer. I don't know why that's there. I might need to close Cursor to get rid of that. Okay, and so here I'll refresh the page. Source is already selected. What is today's date? Here I'm expecting it delegates to the search agent. Let me open the network tab to see if I can get more detailed logs. So I get one validation error over here, but that's not very informative. I'm getting 200 responses. Okay, so let's see if the server has anything more. I'll say on the client, I see, and I'm using Shift Enter to keep typing, and I'll say on the server, I see, and I'll paste this larger chunk, which is probably more informative. It says enable delegation is flat out rejected by the LLM agent constructor. So maybe the root agent should not be an LLM agent. I'll check the documentation myself as well. So yeah, it should be a base agent. Oh, the coordinator can be an LLM agent. I'm scrolling for a good reference code. This is a sequential agent. I don't know that we need it. We really don't need it. We may go for that if it is the only thing that seems to work, but it seems unnecessary to me. Here's a loop agent with sub-agents. That one looks good. Sub-agents will be the key in any case. So here's a loop agent. Do we have an LLM agent with sub-agents? Here is an LLM agent with this syntax. Alternatively, you could use LLM transfer research assistant as a sub-agent. So LLM agent appears capable of delegation through the tools key rather than sub-agents explicitly. Where the workflow agents, so this is a different kind of agent. These are workflow agents when you want a well-defined workflow. They appear to all use the key sub-agents. No, here's an LLM agent that has sub-agents literal. So let me take this code example. Oh, okay, so it's already decided to use sub-agents. All right, good. Let's try again. What is today's date? Good, so the transfer worked. Google search tool cannot be used with 1.x. That's fine. This should be a matter of changing the search to use Gemini 2.0, which I prefer anyway. Let me check my Git diff. I was previously using Gemini 2.0 Flash and it worked. So Gemini 2.0 Flash here, I think should be fine. So the delegation worked, but then the child agent failed because it had an incompatible foundation model. Let's try again. Tool use with function calling is unsupported. Ooh, bummer. Okay, I think there is a workaround for this. But I'm not happy to see that. Let me try using 2.0 across the board. This probably will not help, but I like the model more anyway. Okay. All right, so let's go for the workaround. I'll stage this. We're in a fair state. All right, so let me remember where I saw this workaround. I think there's an open GitHub issue for this. Yeah. Workaround in 53. So this is the problem that we're dealing with. We can see there's a root agent that uses tool. Okay, so the workaround is don't use subagents, but instead use tools agent tool like this. I see there is a known, okay, this error is coming from the child. This is a known error with a known workaround. Here is a code snippet for the workaround. I'll give the code snippet last. See, the reason that I give it last is there is a known focus pattern in language models with the lost in the middle effect. So language models will pay the most attention. They will allocate the most focus to the most recent message and the oldest message, and then they will lose focus on the middle stuff. So if you have the ability to order your instructions, keep the most important instruction at the top and bottom, and the sort of moderately important stuff can go in the middle. So that's what I tried to replicate here. Okay, so it's refactored as I expect. The reason this question is interesting is because it is not in the foundation model's training data. So foundation models are trained on historical data. Given that data, it could not know today's date. So this question will force trigger a web search. And you can see it gave the correct answer. Now let's see if the die roller tool is also working. Okay, great. So it rolled 2d20 successfully. I got 1 in 16 as expected. Good. So this appears to be a working multi-agent system. So let me commit this. And I'll also add a comment here because subagents is more idiomatic. I think it was issue 53. All right, where did that thing go? Okay, all right, I think this looks good. So we'll commit that. And so now we've got it working in the playground. Let's see if it also works in Docker. Okay, so the Docker workflow, if I have it in my history, let's see. Yeah, so I'll Docker build. Let me close this. I'll Docker build and tag it ADK Quickstart. Let me see if this is in the documentation currently, by the way. Yeah, so in the main README, not the backend folder README, the main README, we build it this way and run it this way. Oh, failed to read the Docker. Oh, okay, I need to change my directory. "20 minutes, not bad for converting a single agent system to a multi-agent system, huh?" So now we are running Uvacorn. This introduces additional complexity that the playground can avoid. And so this is discussed in the troubleshooting section. Using the playground is a diagnostic and debugging tool because you eliminate the complexity of Uvacorn, Fast API, and Vite. So our front end will be running with Vite. So to get to the front end, I go to /app. So this is a custom front end. This is not the playground. This is a front end that's built using the code under the front end folder. So this Quickstart repository is a full stack repository. And I don't know if this is going to work. We got it to work in the playground. That's kind of step one, which means that the agent itself is working. But it could fail at the Uvacorn, Fast API, or Vite communication levels. I'll ask it the same thing. What is today's date? Yeah, so it just failed immediately due to cores. Okay, so this is an unrelated issue to the agent. Let's see if I can fix it anyway. So I'll open back up my cursor composer. Command-Shift-P, open composer as pane. Oh, no, the thing is still here. I don't know how to get rid of that tab to utils. So in the backend code, if I go to source agent server, yeah, okay. So it may not be surprising that this doesn't work. Let me try. There are two ways to run it. This is kind of in the weeds developer stuff for the repository. There are actually three ways. Try running the app three different ways as a troubleshooting technique: make dev, make debug dev, and through Docker. So let's try debug dev, which will go through this server file, which runs Uvacorn without Fast API. That's the reason to have debug dev. Otherwise, if I make dev, I think we're going through this app file, which uses Fast API. So this might help us understand, is the issue with Fast API or not? Although I thought I fixed this, but famous last words, right? Okay, what is today's date? And I get a cores issue again, 400 pre-flight failure. So this is not specific to Fast API. Let's see. I'll bring the server file in here. I'm having a cores issue with a static web application. I won't specify that it's Vite because that may cause the language model to think about Vite things. And this is, I think, unrelated to Vite because we're dealing with a statically compiled output. I may have it backwards. This may be the one that is not fixed and the other way is fixed. So we'll try that momentarily. Here I already see localhost 5173. That's probably the root cause. So it's autonomously looking into app.py. And the assistant has suggested removing allow origin on 5173. I don't see that that would help, but we'll try it. It seems to have removed permissions from 50. Oh, you know what? Okay, hold on. I might need to just access the app from a different port. Okay. Okay, so here I'm accessing localhost 5173 instead of the 0 port. Good. Okay, so that approach actually works. When we access it from the Vite dev server. Okay, and we tried it with Docker and got the issue. So I might just need to enable both ports. Let's try what the agent has suggested. So the front end is being launched on 5173 and the back end on 8000. That's the issue, to be clear. Okay, so that still works. And it's a lot less code, so that's nice. We save about 30 lines. Why does it work? Oh, because we have allow all this stuff up at the top. So this highlights that this is meant to be like a developer workflow. The Docker file is meant for production, where you can lock down those ports a bit more. Okay, so this works. What if I come from 8000? Great, so it's going to work either way when we use make debug dev. I'll also write make cleanup processes. Oh, that wiped out my stream momentarily. Oops. Okay. So make debug dev is working. I don't know if make dev will work. Let's see. Okay, so make dev is still not working, which I think is okay. Make dev currently doesn't work. That's the same status as before I started the stream. Let's see whether the Docker approach is working. So I'll rebuild the Docker file now that the app.py has changed. And now we're running the Docker file that we just built. And now I think I cannot access the app at 5173. So I'll refresh. Good. So that's intentional. It locks the things down to both use port 8000 in the Docker file flow. You can just look at the Docker file if you want, but the idea is to consolidate ports, which should help us with the course issue, in theory, if they're both served on localhost 8000. Great. And then roll 1d6. You rolled a 2. Okay, great. So we have demonstrated that we're in no worse of a situation than before we started, but now we have multi-agent support with a combination of custom tools, built-in tools, and delegation. And that was the main intent of today's stream. So dealing with the make dev, the third way to run it, making that part work, I'll save that for a different stream. So the feature here is fix cores for debug dev. And I'll confirm the SHA for you because I am still tinkering with this app, so you might want to know the actual SHA here. 9862, all right, is the short SHA. All right, so I hope this was an interesting stream. Follow the page for more. You can also join the Latterly Discord. So again, latterly.io, go to community Discord, and you can come chat about tech things, whether it's AI related, ordinary software engineering, full stack, pick your favorite language. We'd love to hear from you. And you can sign up at Latterly for free, which will help with interview prep and stuff like that. So I'll particularly recommend the blog, build a portfolio, how to do leak code, things like networking scripts, networking tips, what job boards that you should use to get a software engineering role, all sorts of really great stuff on